Hello, I do these yoga classes absolutely so that you can enjoy them at home, and that means a lot to me. But if you're able to support my channel, then please go to www.ko-fi.com/JoCookYoga and you will be able to make a small donation there. I hope you enjoy the practice today. Hello, welcome to my yoga practice today. Today we're going to focus on stretching the legs mostly. We'll stretch everywhere, but it's largely a leg practice, and we're going to begin with downward facing dog. So come to your mat and kneel, but with your hands and knees wider than your shoulders and hips. Place your hands. Spread the fingers so there is a space between each finger, but you're not excessively spreading the hands. Bring the weight to be even between the inside and the outside of the heel of the hand, and also across all of the joints of your fingers. Tuck your toes under, lift your knees off the floor and stretch your hips up and back. Draw your tailbone into your body rather than flicking it up towards the ceiling. And at this stage, really emphasize the length between your hands and your hips. Emphasize the width between your shoulders. So roll the shoulders out, straighten the elbows, let the head feel neutral, and then unfold the legs. Lift the front of the legs. Extend the soles of the heels backwards rather than pushing downwards. If they're going to reach the floor, that will happen as a byproduct rather than as sinking downwards. Keep your breath long. Rest whenever you need to, but if you can stay in this pose, go back again to the lift from the hands to the hips, back again to the lift up the front of the legs. Look for that evenness across the hands and across the balls of the feet. And then rest down to all fours. Bring your toes together, your knees apart, and rest back, or rather extend back. Bring your hands to be at least as wide as the mat. Keep your head slightly off the floor at this point. Elbows are off the floor. Shoulders are very wide again. Rolling the shoulders out, making sure the elbows are away from the floor. Extending the spine down, back, tailbone towards the heels, but lifting the sternum between the chest, between the front ribs, lifting it up and forwards. If your head reaches the floor, you can rest it. If your head is a long way from the floor, or if you feel you have to round the back and the shoulders come to the ears, then you can either keep it off the floor most simply, or place a block here so that you can rest your head on something. It doesn't need to be the floor. So this is partially resting, partially extending. And then let's come once more to downward facing dog. Lift up a little bit faster this time, exactly the same as before. Extend out the legs. Look for the length to be the same between the big toe and the little toe side of your foot. So there's no need for you to lift one foot off the floor, but look for the length to be the same between the inside and the outside of the foot, because an imbalance of weight there will generally mean that there's some form of imbalance in how you're extending the legs. Lifting the front of the legs again, extending the soles of the feet backwards. And then to come out this time, we're going to walk forwards towards the hands. So the feet walk towards the hands. If your hands can stay on the floor and have straight legs, then you can keep them there. If you need bent legs to keep your hands on the floor, then take a chair or some blocks and place your hands there so that you can straighten your legs somehow now. Shoulders are now going to move towards your hips. Sternum again, this centre chest area reaches forward, so this is half Uttanasana. Again, I'm going to think about the weight between the inside and the outside of the foot. In fact, across the whole of the surface of the sole of the foot, and even that up. If you're sensitive, if you look for it, you may feel that as you even that up, you access different senses of stretch in different parts of your legs. Because your feet are not just literally attached to your legs, they're also related to your legs in how the weight falls on the foot relates to how we're using the legs. We're going to step back into downward facing dog again. So we're not going to come up, we're going to bend the knees as much as you need to get the hands nice and firm on the floor. Step back with one foot, step back with the other foot, lift up and back. Then we're going to bring one foot forwards, we're going to bring the other foot forwards, lift forwards. Then whichever foot went back first, if you can't remember, just test and go again without thinking. For me, it's my right foot. If you're right-handed, it's possibly going to be your right foot, but don't be assuming that. Just see whichever foot goes back instinctively first, and this time we're going to go with the other leg. So bring your hands flat again, bend the knees, and take the other foot back. And then the second foot joins, lift up and back, extend down, lead forwards with whichever foot went back. So my left foot's going to come forwards, then the right, extend forwards. And then we're going to breathe in and come up. As we breathe out, we've been head down for quite a long time, so be careful as you do that, especially if you have any issues with your blood pressure. If you have particularly diagnosed and uncontrolled blood pressure issues, then you shouldn't stay head down for so long. But if you just occasionally get a little bit dizzy as you stand up, but you know that it's all fine health-wise, then just come up carefully. Now we're going to go back, do exactly the same thing one more time, and you can either step or you can jump your feet back. So I will show you jumping the feet back. You begin at the front edge of your mat. Fold at the hips, bring the hands down, and then again take your hands flat, bend your knees, and if you're jumping, you take both feet back at once and into downward facing dog. And then to come forwards, you breathe in, you look forwards, and you bring both feet forwards and come up into half Uttanasana. So I don't know if you did that with me or not, so I will do one with you. Just be careful as you jump. If you have any knee issues, then don't jump. If it introduces pain, bring your hands flat, bend your knees, jump back, straighten out the legs. It might be that you don't go back as far as you'd like to begin with, that's fine. You can jump and then step your feet to the exact right position. And then we're going to come forward, so we're going to look forwards, breathe in and breathe out as you jump. Extend forwards into half Uttanasana, and then again breathe in and breathe out as you stand up. So fairly active start. We're now going to stretch the legs in a bit more detail. So take a yoga belt. If you don't have a yoga belt, a really fantastic alternative is a dressing gown belt. So often a belt that you would put around your waist and have a buckle on might not be long enough and might be quite tough. So a dressing gown belt won't stretch generally. Not stretching is a good quality to look for, but also it's quite long because you would normally tie it. So if you don't have a yoga belt, a dressing gown belt is an excellent alternative. So we're going to lie down. Make sure you've got space to straighten out your legs, and then bring your right leg, take the belt around the heel, extend out the left leg, and then see how straight can you get the right leg. It might be all the way straight, it might not, it might be a little bit bent still. You can see how there is a bend in my elbows. I'm holding the belt so that my palms are facing each other, or even slightly facing towards my face as well, or at least towards the space above my face. Definitely not like that where I would be rolling my shoulders in. So I'm holding the belt to help my shoulders go away from my ears and down towards the floor. let's swap legs. Okay, so bring the right leg down to the floor, left leg onto the belt, extend that leg to straight, and then see how much you can straighten your left leg. Go to vertical if you can. If you can't, go wherever you're able to go to. If this is a real strain for you, and it is for a lot of people, don't go to the point where your leg shakes and judders. Come away from that extreme boundary. Make sure you can still be still, that you can continue to be still in this pose. And then bring your left leg down. Now bend both knees. You're going to take the right foot into the belt again. And this time the left leg is going to stay bent to begin with. Now you're going to straighten the right leg. For most of us, that will make it less challenging to straighten the right leg. If it's very easy for you, don't just think, oh, I'll straighten the leg out. What I'd like you to do is explore, how can I still extend my leg vertically? How can I still bring life to the whole of my leg? So this is not creating very obvious stretch sensations in my leg because I've got the luxury of a bit more flexibility than that. So I need to look for that work, and I need to look into the absence of strain, which is a nice feeling that it's not a strain, but I need to look into that and see what can I do to still extend. So I'm not just pulling the belt down, I'm pushing my foot up. I'm exploring all the muscles at the front of my leg and seeing how much can I extend them and draw them in towards the bone without just being very tense. And I'm also trying to extend up the back of the leg and even develop awareness of the side of my leg. For those of you who it is difficult to stretch, then partly you're simply focused on that. But in addition, you need to not just be seduced by the very strong stretch feelings, and look how much you can bring life into the rest of your leg. So let us try that with the second leg. So take your right foot out of the belt, left foot comes into the belt, keep the knee bent and stretch up towards the ceiling. So the shape becomes a bit more accessible, but we still need to look into the extension. So here we're not just working on our bodies by pushing them into an extreme shape. We're actually working within quite a comfortable boundary, and we're looking for how can we extend the body even within its own flexibility. And then bring that foot down. Now what we're going to do next is you have a choice. If you find these leg stretches very challenging, then I'd like you to stay and do what you just did, which is exactly like that. Focus on straightening this leg, okay? So if that's still a challenge for you, then that's where you need to work. If it's relatively comfortable, what we're going to do is work in stages to push towards whatever your particular boundary point is at the moment of flexibility, but doing that with lots of awareness. So we begin here, all of us, with the right leg up, the left leg bent. We find that awareness and extension in the right leg, and if it helps you to focus on the sensations, you can close your eyes. Then we're going to extend out. If you have more flexibility, you can still keep awareness and straightness in that right leg. You can extend out the left leg. You'll begin to feel the relationship with the legs, because it is more difficult to keep both legs straight than just one. So now I'm extending out with the left leg along the floor, and I'm extending upwards with the right leg into the air. If there's still some space for a bit more flexibility, you can begin very carefully to bring the right leg over. Now as you do that, the more that the right leg comes over, and it needs to go very slowly, the left leg does not get dragged with it. So the left leg stays away, stays extending, and also the right hip doesn't come as well. So this is a movement of the length of the leg and the foot but the right hip stays away from the waist. The left leg stays extending over. Otherwise, we're simply dragging our body around in space rather than extending the inside mechanism of our body. Stay, breathe. This is not a shoulder challenging position, so be comfortable in the shoulders. It's not intended to be a shoulder challenging position. Working equally on the stretch, but also on our awareness of the stretch. Come back from the edge of your boundary, bring that leg down, bend both legs, feet onto the floor, and we have the last side to do like this. So keeping the right leg bent, foot on the floor, stretch the left leg up. Open or close your eyes, but open your awareness of your leg, whether the eyes are looking or not. Open your awareness of your leg. Extension upwards. Even where is the weight across the back of your pelvis on the floor here. Don't allow it to roll to one side or another. Keep the shoulders comfortable. Remember how I described holding the belt. Then you're going to straighten out the right leg this time, along the floor. Extend away with that right leg, attempting to have no gap underneath the back of the thigh. So you can even lift and extend that leg away more. Use the qualities of your grippy mat to try and keep the right leg away. And then as I extend out with both legs, I'm going to add in an awareness of this outer left hip, so that as I encourage a little bit more extension into that left leg, I'm keeping my right leg extending away, my left hip not coming up towards my waist, but staying where it started. If anything, actively trying to move that left hip towards my right foot. And I can bring my leg over a little bit. Stay steady. Don't go to the position where you shake or judder. If your stamina is not fully developed yet and you begin to shake, begin to tire, it's completely fine to take a break. Once you start to shake, there's no awareness anymore. It's very difficult to control. So try not to go into that level of strain. And then bring the left leg back to neutral, bend the foot, bend the leg, bring the foot down, right foot onto the floor, and then we're going to roll onto our sides and come back up. So we're going to do PARSVOTTANASANA, which you may want to use a chair or bricks. If you don't have yoga equipment, a chair is something you're much more likely to have. So take a chair onto the end of your mat like so, and then we're going to begin facing the long edge of your mat. Step one foot just underneath slightly the seat of the chair. You don't need to knock your leg against the chair seat though. Step the other foot away. So my left foot is now to the chair, so my left foot is going to be the front foot first. Doesn't matter which foot it is for you, but have one foot under the chair. So your back foot is the foot that's not under the chair. You turn that deeply round. So if you can, bring it all the way around like so. However, for most people it's easier to bring the toes part way around, lift onto your tiptoes, push the heel away and stretch that foot back down. Then we're going to turn the hips and turn the front foot until we face the chair. So pressing into the back heel, lifting the arch of that back foot, so not letting all the weight drop forwards, but bringing an arch back into the foot, extending in the outside edge of that whole foot back there, but bringing the hips around, straightening the legs. Folding forwards at the hips and bring your hands to the chair. Now again, this might already have strayed into very challenging territory, or it might not be all that challenging. I don't know what your body's like, but we can all find extension here. And we can all work on alignment. So the anchor point of this pose is this back foot on the floor down here. That never stops extending the heel back. But we bring the hip around and we lift up with the front foot. We extend forwards with the chest, move the navel slightly back so that this area of the back stays long, doesn't collapse forwards at any time. And now we're going to come out of this position. So we're going to be strong in the legs, lift upright, turn the feet to face the front, and then bring the feet together. Now you can either swap the chair to the other side, or I'm going to begin facing away from you. Step your feet apart, bring your foot slightly underneath the seat of the chair there. Turn the back foot in, my left foot this time. Turn your right foot out. The anchor point is that back heel. Lift the arch of the back foot and then draw the hips around. So the instructions that I'm giving you for that back leg mean that it has to stretch in two directions. It has to stretch towards the floor and it has to extend forwards and upwards to bring the hip around. And that's intentional because it extends the legs. We're going to lift up the front of the front leg, lift up the whole of the leg, but particularly think about lifting up the front of the leg and bring that hip back. Hinge at the hips, fold over the front leg and bring your hands to the chair seat. So once you have your hands on the seat, it will support you a little, but I don't want you to just collapse onto the support. We need our legs to be lifting so that you could just take your hands away from the chair easily, perhaps even more easily than I just showed because I was wobbly there. So lift and extend your legs and just test that. Can you support yourself? Take the hands off the chair. What we can use the chair to help us with is lifting the chest forward. So supporting the hands helps us to move the shoulders towards the hips and lift the sternum up. Remember what I said about your lower back in the last time we did this pose? So navel comes up, keeps this area long. And then keep your legs strong to support you as you come up. Turn your feet to the side and bring your feet together. We're going to add a twist into that. So what started as a pose called PARSVOTTANASANA, which is a kind of wide-legged forward bend, becomes a pose called twisting triangle pose or PARIVRTTA TRIKONASANA. So it looks the same almost the whole way, and I'm going to end up facing away from you to begin with. So let me just show you if you're not familiar. Turn the back foot in, front foot out, strong lifted legs, exactly the same. Bring your hand down, and if your left foot is the left leg is the front leg, and your right hand stays down, in line with the inner leg is the simplest place to put it. Put your hand onto your back, lift forwards to begin with. So in this position, we've done nothing other than change the hands. We'll begin to change more in a moment. We've changed the hands first. We're extending forwards, and then we're going to turn the shoulders. And if your balance is good, you can turn your head and then face to the chair again. Bring your hands back to the normal position. Stand up, feet to the front, feet together, and then turn around the other way. So you do this on the other leg. So if you didn't do it with me the first time, rewind a few seconds, do the first side, and then we're going to do the second side. So the second side, bringing my right foot under the chair, turn your left foot in, right foot out, lift up with the legs, equalise the hips, hinge forwards from the hips, bring your hands to the chair. This is all like the last pose. Then we begin to change it. We're going to bring the hand to the centre line of the body. So the hand just about in line with the inner leg here. Bring your other hand onto your back. Still, all we've really changed is the hand position. Then we're going to begin to change the shoulders. So keep the legs lifting, keep the hips equal. You can lift this front hip up and back even more. Same action, just re-emphasize it. Turn the shoulders to the side. You can turn your gaze to the side and then face the front. Strong legs, feet to the front, bring the feet together. So one more time on each side, now you're a bit more familiar with it. And again, we can go a little further if you're able. So feet wide and a little further just means going a little bit lower with the hands. So that might not be possible for you. It becomes even more intense in the stretch in the front of this leg. So starting here, and then if you can, you bring your forearm down. Again, still on the inside edge of this leg. This shoulder tends to close the gap with the ear, so you need to draw the shoulder and the shoulder blade back towards the back leg. Hand onto your back. Stabilise and lift the legs, and then turn the chest. And the head, if your balance lets you, to the side. Control this shoulder away from the ear. Control the other shoulder away from the ear. You can even extend your hand out to the back and maybe even upwards. If your hand ends up going somewhere over here, don't worry. Just keep it resting. If it will reach to the ceiling, reach it to the ceiling. Bring your hand down. Turn carefully back to face the chair. Straighten the arms. So come out step by step, under control. Turn the feet to the front. Bring your feet together. One more side to do here. So with these ones where I turn, if I begin facing away from you, I will end up facing towards you when we're in the pose. So stepping the feet apart. Turn your back foot in, front foot out. Strong lifted leg. Remember the anchor point of the back foot. Hands come down. Now you repeat just at this position. If your legs have enough challenge, if you have any doubts about how your back feels about this, then maybe don't even twist at all. But if you have more flexibility and strength and stability, then bring your forearm down so that it's in line with the inner leg. Take your hand onto your back. Before you do any more, check your legs again. So send your awareness, which should never leave your legs, but occasionally our attention is distracted somewhere else in the pose. Just send it down into the legs for a moment. Leave some of it there. But then we start to turn the shoulders. The tummy turns. The hips stay facing front. We can turn to the side if that's fairly easy. You can lift to the side. Now you can see this time I'm not as well turned and this shoulder is stiffer, so it's starting to come forwards. So honestly, my shoulders are going to be better today stretching back like that. And then we're going to bring the hands back to the chair, bring the gaze back to the chair, straighten the arms, strengthen the legs, stand up, turn the feet to the side and bring the feet together. Move your chair away from your mat and let's just spend a moment in a restful position. So not everything is restful for everyone, so if what I'm showing isn't restful for you, then feel free to choose an alternative. But I'm just going to lie on my back. I'm going to bring my hands to the fronts of my shins. I'm going to let my knees go slightly apart and I'm going to draw my knees towards my chest, being aware of what my shoulders are doing. Now if your knees don't enjoy bending that much, you can put your hands behind the knees. That creates space. That can be more comfortable. Knees together or apart is completely personal preference at this point. Let your breath come back to normal. So here we are not pushing towards the limits of anything that we can do. We're just giving our legs a moment's rest. We're letting our breath come back to be even and steady, not hurried. You're going to bring your feet back down to the floor and then roll over onto your side and use your arms to sit up. You'll hear that instruction quite often because the arms are much less likely to get injured by pushing in that way than if you use your back or abdomen muscles to push and lift you up. Now we're going to do an upward facing dog pose. So we're going to go from downward facing dog into upward facing dog. This is a pose that is really good for strength in the back, but do be careful if you do have a back injury. Remember, I can't give you any individual guidance, so take a look if you're at all unsure and go very carefully if this is new to you. So we're going to go from downward facing dog. We've done plenty of these already today. One of the most classic yoga positions. Now the most important thing that you transfer from your downward facing dog to your upward facing dog is the strength and straightness of your legs, particularly the front legs. So lift those front legs back towards the bone, and even as you travel forwards, which you will, keep those legs lifting upwards. So you come forwards, keep the legs strong, keep the legs straight, bring your pelvis towards the floor, move your shoulders away from your ears and roll them back. Upward facing dog. And then you can either lift up and back into downward facing dog, but that can be too strenuous. So if that's too much for you, you simply bring your knees down. Either just go back to all fours, or from here you can go back to downward facing dog. Okay, so for a moment either rest in downward facing dog or on all fours, whichever your body needs. And then we're going to do another upward facing dog. So as well as the strength in the legs this next time, work on making your shoulders feel open and strong. Do not sag or hang off your shoulders. Lift out of the shoulders. So legs are strong, but lift your head and away from your shoulders. Lift up in the upper body. Draw your tailbone towards your heels. Strong legs. And then lift back if you can, or go down if you need to, as I described and showed before. Rest again in either downward facing dog or on all fours, or even down in ADHO MUKHA VIRASANA, this position, if you need to. So upward facing dog is a very energetic pose. So it will create the need for more breath. Last one, so strong legs lifting back, coming down with the pelvis but not to the floor, lifting up with the body. This is a very strong front body extension. And then go back if you can. Should we do one more cheeky one, which I didn't warn you about? If you've got the energy for one more, let's go for it now. Strong legs, lifting out the shoulders. Lift the body up and then go back. Let's all rest to the knees. Knees apart, toes together, come back. Don't need to be straight arms now. Bend the elbows, rest the head. You can fold the hands underneath the forehead if you need or want. Equally, you can take support under the head if you need or want. Again, just let your breath become steady, calm down, and then we're going to go for another back bend. I'm going to suggest that, especially if you're on a hard floor, or you have a particularly thin mat, that you take a blanket. It doesn't have to be thick, but just add a little bit of cushioning under the front body. This next pose is called URDHVA DHANURASANA, or upward facing bow pose. It is quite strenuous and it is not recommended if you have a knee issue. So just watch through this pose and you can either repeat upward facing dog or just take a rest for a couple of moments, and then when your knee issue is stronger, as in more recovered, you can join in with this another time. So you come onto your front, rest your head. You see the tops of my feet are on the floor. I'm going to extend each leg, and the purpose of that is to get this area, which if you're wearing swimming trunks, where the front of the swimming trunks goes down, this needs to be connected to the floor, and that is achieved by letting your tailbone reach down towards your heels again. In fact, down towards the floor between your knees. And then we're going to bend the knees and flex the feet. And then we are going to reach our hands back, okay, and take the ankles. And rest the head down. Focus again on the front groins. So this the swimming trunk area, where the seam of your swimming trunk would be. See if you can be aware of your feet. Don't let them excessively turn in or out. Ideally, they are parallel. They are flat to the ceiling. It's very hard to tell. I'll be honest, it is very hard to tell without a teacher there to tell you. So if you're able to maybe video yourself doing this or have a look in the mirror, although it's very difficult to look whilst doing, it's a good way to see what your feet are doing. But do your best to have them facing the ceiling, the soles of the feet. The first time, we're going to let the legs do all the work. So push your pubic bone into the floor, lift your head just a little, and then move your heels away from your bottom and out away from you to lift your chest. Just a little. You have to keep the tailbone down. Okay, and then rest. This time we're going to add a second action, which is we're going to lift the head a little, we're going to lift the thighs, and then we're going to unfold the legs. Okay, so we'll do that one more time. Rest for a second. Pubic bone down, so not letting gap come here. Never let a gap come here. It's dangerous for the back because this area begins to compress together. So here must stay down. That's partly why we have the softness. Hold the ankles now. Head lifted just slightly, just off the floor. Then we're going to lift the thighs off the floor, move the feet away, and now try to lift the chest as well. Lift the feet directly towards the ceiling. You will move and rock as you breathe. And then come down. Let go of the feet. Let your legs straighten. Bring your hands forwards. Rest your head on your folded hands. We've got one more that we're going to try. So just rest for a moment. So upward facing bow pose. Your body becomes the wood of the bow and your arms become the string of the bow. I think I have that the right way around. And the reason why you will rock as you go up is because as you fill your lungs, the lower part of your lungs, move your abdomen down. So they will fill and inflate and deflate. So last one. Knees are slightly apart, okay, so feet are not all the way together, feet are not miles apart. Bend the knees, take the ankles, ideally as a pair together, but one by one if you have to. If you do have to do that, be really careful with the twisting. And then we're going to go up in those stages. So the first thing we're going to do is pubic bone down. Never stop doing that. Second thing we're going to do is lift the thighs up. Third thing we're going to do is move the feet away, lifting the feet towards the ceiling. And then if we're able to do any more, we see if we can curve the chest up a little bit. Shoulders fairly relaxed, Strong front opening of the shoulder, but not lifting the shoulders to the ears. And then rest the legs down, straighten the legs carefully, keep the pubic bone down, rest the head, let the bottom muscles relax, let the whole of the back relax. And then you can push yourself up with your arms once more onto all fours, and then sit back if your knees will do that. So next we're going to kneel in Virasana. So Virasana is a kneeling position, and you either want to have some yoga blocks, I have 2 here, or if you don't have access to yoga blocks or suitably sized books, then a blanket will work, quite a nice neatly folded blanket. I'll show you with yoga blocks first. I'm going to turn around to face away from you. I'm going to place the blocks widthways, so the wide way apart. I'm going to kneel with my knees together and my feet either side of those blocks. Place my fingertips in the back of the knees, draw slightly back and slightly out, not aggressively, just slightly moving the calf flesh out of the way so there's more space for the knee to fold. Pull your fingers out, and the idea is you are sat between your feet, the feet are pointing backwards. I'm going to show you that again. If you're comfortable as you are, you don't need to move, but I'm going to show you from the front. So from the front, we kneel. Knees are either all the way together or perhaps slightly apart. Together is the classic position, and that's ideal, but not everybody's legs are ready to do that. I'm going to place the blocks, place my fingertips in that area, slightly back, slightly out, sit onto my fingertips, then draw my fingers out. That should be more comfortable in the knee joint. And now I'm sat between my feet. Have a look at your feet, make sure they're pointing backwards, so they're not going all the way out like so, then twisting, distorting your ankle. Now what we're going to do, I'm going to change my position again, and you may need to change your position. We're going to experiment with going backwards into a pose called SUPTA Virasana. SUPTA in Sanskrit means backwards or reclining. So we're going to sit on whatever you need to. Now ultimately in this pose you sit on the floor, okay? So sit as low as you can. The things that dictate whether you can are how much the front thighs will stretch, any pain in your knee, which is not acceptable, so don't sit so low that there's pain in the knee. There are ways to deal with it, but I don't have time to demonstrate them now. So if you know how to adjust your knee, that's fine. So you can sit lower. The other thing is if your knees start to lift off the floor, then that is also not what you want, okay? So what we're going to do is place the hands just behind the toes if you can. We're going to lift our bodies up, so not sinking back, lifting up but the tailbone still in. Try and be aware of how your shin bones feel on the floor, and you want to try and press the whole length of the shin bone onto the floor. Draw the shoulders back, lift the chest up, tailbone forwards. Now if you can do that fairly comfortably, then you're going to take your hands flat. If you can do that fairly comfortably, you're actually going to lift your bottom slightly and tuck the pelvis under. Could you see the difference there? So the front of my pelvis goes from facing that way to lying much flatter, if you have a look. So starting sat up, you go back, you lift up and you tuck, and then you lie yourself back down. Now if you're on blocks, you will not go any lower than your blocks at absolute maximum. So for today, because I'm on this block, I'm just going to go down to my elbows. Now as I go to my elbows, I have to work extra hard to keep my shins down, because otherwise they will start to come up. And that is both not the pose, also dangerous on my ankles and on my knees. So I'm extending forwards in order to keep my shin bones down. That brings a very intense stretch to the front of my thighs. I'm also just making sure that I keep my chest open and I don't drop it back, keep my shoulders open, I'm keeping my head up because I have an old neck injury and I don't wish to drop my head back. And then you push yourself back up with your arms as ever. And then to come out of here, the best way, rather than twisting the legs round, is to simply come forwards onto hands and knees. Now we have one final pose to do before we do relaxation, and you're going to place 2 blocks across the width of your mat. If you don't have blocks, then a folded blanket will work. So for this time I will show you with a folded blanket. You need to fold it neatly, and it needs to be about the same size as a block. So blocks are approximately the size of an A4 sheet of paper. If you've never had a yoga block in your hand, that is approximately what size they are. So about as wide as a sheet of A4 paper. Then you're going to fold your mat over so that you don't have the slippy blanket. And that works even if you're using blocks. Blocks are less slippy than the blanket, but it's still ideal if you fold your mat over. Now there's an optional extra of a brick here, and it needs to be something like a yoga brick to be both safe and comfortable. So by all means experiment with an alternative, but it does need to be pretty stable, and have a look at what we're going to do before you use it. Now I just looked sideways to you. That's the last time I'm going to do it, because it is not a good idea to put any pressure on your neck, or even accidentally, because there shouldn't be pressure on your neck, but it can accidentally, and look sideways. So I am not going to look sideways again. I'm going to just make sure that the back of my neck is long. My shoulders are on here, but my head is on the floor. If your head tips back an awful lot, you need to really try and adjust it. And if you need to, then you're going to need to lift your shoulders higher, so you will need more layers underneath your shoulders. Then I'll show you without the brick first. Bring the feet in as close to your bottom as they'll go, and have your feet about as wide as your hips, so my knees are apart, not falling apart, just slightly apart. I'm going to turn my palms to the ceiling. That will begin to turn my shoulders outwards. Then I'm going to lift my bottom up. When I'm part way, I'm about a straight line here, I'm going to walk my shoulders under a little bit more, stretch towards my feet, and then I'm going to lift. You can keep your hands extending towards your feet or the sides of your feet, but you're going to lift your tailbone up and come more onto the tops of the shoulders. Now if at this point your shoulders fall off the blocks or the support, then you didn't start far enough that direction, and you need to come back down and make sure you've got enough space to roll those shoulders over. Now without the brick, this is quite a strenuous pose, especially on the legs, which have already done a lot of work. So the brick comes just under the tailbone. You can see I'm on my tiptoes now to make space to place that just under the tailbone. So it's got a very solid contact point against my skeleton. Feet are trying to face forwards, not turning in or out, but trying to face forwards, still walking the shoulders under. So this is still semi-active, but I am supported on the brick, so my thighs don't need to be doing the lifting. It's very opening here. I'm definitely actively curving and opening my front chest to bring my sternum area towards my chin. So if you're not familiar with this pose, it would be really wise to watch this section first, rewind to the beginning of this pose, and then do it again, listening to the instructions once you know what it looks like. So if you're doing the active version, you need to go up, hold for maybe a count of 10 seconds, depends on your stamina, come back down again, rest for at least twice that long, and then go up and hold again. And you might do that 2 or 3 times within this space. If you're in the supported version, if you're well supported and working in the right boundaries for your body, then there should be no need to go up and down, and you can stay in the up position. Just for a few more moments now. When you come down from whichever method, if you're using the brick, you need to come onto your tiptoes to lift up and take the brick out, but then feet flat, you come down, rolling your spine down, moving your tailbone towards your knees so that you keep your lower back very long. Your head may tilt back as you come down, lengthen it if you need to. Rest like that for a moment and then bring your feet closer together so that you can roll onto your side. And then again, it's about the arms pushing you upright. And we're going to prepare for Shavasana, for relaxation. So today I'm going to just do a very, very traditional lying flat relaxation. I am going to use a blanket for my head, and I am going to put on a slightly warmer layer because it's a little bit cooler today. So you might have your own preferred way of preparing for Shavasana, for relaxation. That's completely fine. I'm going to show you some basic things to get a really good preparation for about 10 minutes of Shavasana and some breathing exercises. So first of all, whatever clothes you're wearing as you lie down, so I've got a little belt here, just make sure that they are straight and lump free, so crease free, lump free, so that that layer of clothing underneath you is not going to distract and disturb your attention. I've laid down to begin with and I've kept my knees bent. I'm going to again just pay a little bit of attention to what I'm wearing. There we go. I'm going to move that collar so it is nice and flat underneath. Now, if you're using a support for your head, and for a lot of us it's really advisable, partly because in Shavasana it's ideal to have a fall from the hairline to the bridge of the nose. So we're not sharply tucking the chin towards the chest, but this area is not overly open or stretched or stressed. We don't want to expose the throat area, but we don't want to crush it and close it. So there's a balance there. Then you're going to get your shoulders feeling comfortable, place your triceps, the back of your upper arms, on the floor, press down slightly and walk the shoulders under. So the shoulder blades feel like they travel down your back just a little, but then you feel open in the shoulders, and take your hands out to the side. Now it's really important, whatever angle you take the hands to, that your wrists and knuckles reach the floor, and reach the floor fairly evenly between each side of the hand. So if the hand ends up suspended, or you can only turn it and only have, say, the inner hand resting down, then it would be advisable to either adjust the angle of the arm. That might mean that your hand can go down more comfortably, because the further up you go, generally the less likely your hand is going to get to the floor with a straight arm. But also you can support underneath the hand with blocks, with blankets, with cushions. And even if you don't need to do this on both sides, try to have an even amount on both sides so that you are promoting that evenness and equality through your whole body. So pressing down with the upper arms, adjusting the shoulders, rest the arms out to the side. Next, we're then going to straighten out the legs. So without disturbing the rest of your body, lift one leg, straighten it out, lift the other leg and straighten it out. Now my mat is exceptionally grippy, so if I tried to push away, I'd probably get some juddering. But if you can push away quite easily with both legs at once, that's also a great way to do it, because it keeps the legs even. The legs can fall out to the side, but make sure that they don't end up touching some equipment. I just had to move a blanket away that I'm not sure you can see, but my foot was falling onto the blanket. So in your own space there at home, hopefully you've had time to get some warm clothes, and to just pay some really detailed attention to exactly how you place yourself for Shavasana. And all of that attention is so that we can then remove our attention from the body. We don't have disturbances and unevennesses that distract us. And instead our headspace is free to be with our breath. Or if on occasion your focus for meditation or relaxation is something else, the same thing applies. So your headspace, your attention, your consciousness is available to focus on your chosen subject. Here and now, today, that is our breathing. Begin your journey by watching and noticing the movement of your breath as it is, unchanged. You're an outside observer, watching, allowing yourself to be with the whole length of the breath. From the moment that the inhalation begins, all the way to the top of the inhalation when you are full of air, and then all the way down through the exhalation to when you are empty of air. So follow that path for the next 2 or 3 breaths. As you watch your breath, you may notice that the breath is not just an in-breath and an out-breath. There are 2 other important phases of the breath, or sections if you like. The 2 pauses that happen at the beginning of the breath between when we finish breathing out and start breathing in. And then the twin of that at the top of when we've breathed all the way in, just before we breathe out. So take a moment to notice those phases of the breath. We're still not changing anything, simply observing the natural pattern of the breath as it is here and now today. We're going to work on what's called interrupted breathing, very gently. And it begins with awareness of these pauses in the breath that we've already turned our attention to. And what we're going to do is just take that pause between when we've finished breathing in and when we begin to breathe out, when we're full of breath, and we're just going to hold that pause for maybe 1 or 2 seconds longer than its natural length. Not too long, and too long would be when it feels strained or forced. Not straying into those feelings, but just holding it, restraining it, being with it for a small amount longer than natural. The next time that you breathe all the way in, a long natural inhalation, and then just wait with your breath for a count maybe of 1, 2, 3, and then you let your breath go. You breathe all the way out. Let the breath pause at the end of the breathing out be completely normal, so that can stay its normal length for now. If that was comfortable and didn't feel panicked or strained, then go straight back into breathe all the way in. Find that pause at the top of the inhalation. Just hold that stillness for an extra couple of seconds before you breathe all the way out. Continue on that pattern for just the next couple of breaths. Proceeding with care and softness, not straying into strain or panic. And if the breath ever does feel tight or strained, just releasing all changes and going back to a natural pattern. Begin to turn your attention back to your body now. So moving back into your physical self, away from your breath. Notice the places that you contact the floor. Then, wherever instinctively you wish to move first, whether that's fingers or toes or eyes, move. Try to keep the eyes closed if you can. Move slowly and in small ways to begin with. When you're ready, you might want to draw the arms onto your tummy as your next move. And then you might want to bend the knees and draw the feet a little bit closer to your bottom. So the feet are flat, knees are bent. And then for the final time in the class today, we're going to roll onto the side. Shield your eyes with your hand so that when you choose to open the eyes, you don't open the eyes into brightness first off. And you don't open the eyes directly out into the whole room. And then again, as I said, for the last time today, roll over, use those arms again. They're there, they'll help your back to not have any shocks or surprises. And then come to any seated position on your mat that you find comfortable. And we'll finish the practice. Thank you very much. If you're able to support my channel, as I say at the end of every class, of course, if it's not something you can do, this content is given completely freely and I'm just glad that you enjoy it. But if you are able to make a small donation, then the webpage where you're able to do that is appearing on the screen now. I hope you'll be along to enjoy another class very soon. Thank you.